If you have any questions, though, feel free to stick your hand up and ask. We could literally do an entire day breaking down nutrition, how it works, and how it functions in, and how we can implement it for our athletes. But quick overview for kind of how we can put this out there for our clients. You can't finish the puzzle without all the pieces. Absolutely true. Nutrition is a huge part of that fitness puzzle. Ed, save me. Russell, can you click that?
Is it on?
Ed.
That was Ed behind me.
Was it Edred? Yes. Click the left mouse button for the here. Alright, story time. A horror story, a success story from our gym related to nutrition. First, the horror story. One of our fighters, Dominic, I don't know if, I think some of you have met him, but a good kid, very good athlete, top notch. And the way, he's very young, which is what led to the horror story, ultimately, but I think his third or fourth fight, somewhere around there. Give my fighters a nutrition plan. This is what I want you to eat, this is when I want you to eat it, this is what quantities I want you to eat, kind of tailor-made to it. I give Russell the nutrition guidelines, and he pretty well sticks to it. Okay, mature, older guy, well enough to stick to it. Dominic gets to his first round, and I'm looking over at the other guy. The guy sits down, his head drops. I know we won the round. I'm looking at the guy going, awesome. He's tired. Generally speaking, the first guy that gets tired in the fight loses. So I'm going, awesome. Next round is ours. Jess is one of my corner people. She nudges me. She goes, hey, look. I look down at Dom and I said, hey, man, look at me. His face is white as a sheet. And I went, oh, shit, man, my heart just sank. I said, when's the last time you ate? He says, I ate breakfast. It's like 8 o'clock at night. I hadn't eaten in hours. Was he prepared? He was. He was athletically prepared. Skill-wise, he was prepared. He was set. He was good. Set to go. All that good stuff. He just didn't eat. All right, this is fuel. All right, this isn't just because you want a snack. This is fuel. This is the thing that actually keeps you going and keeps you able to perform. So from that aspect, it's very, very important. In police work, we spend 12, 14 hours in a patrol car driving around. The guys often throw up some crap like, oh, I didn't have time to eat, so I stopped at McDonald's. Yeah, you had time to eat. You put a cooler in your car, you got stuff that you can pull out of your cooler and eat right there. Okay, so you don't have to go to McDonald's and hold that job. But that's fuel. So we get a police officer that hasn't eaten since the beginning of a shift. Now he goes from, I've been sitting for 4 hours, no movement whatsoever, very little going on. Now I get up, I got to get in a dead sprint. When I catch a guy, I got to fight him. If he doesn't have that nutrition on board, he's tanking. He's going down pretty hard. Okay. Success story. Had a lady come into the gym about 2 years ago. She came in, she needed to lose about 150 pounds. Right? She was very overweight. Came in training. I talked to her a little bit about nutrition. She's training, because I'm just not dropping the weight. Okay, I see you in here training, what are you eating? Well, I'm eating pretty well. What are you eating? Right? So we get into what you're actually eating. Yeah, it's not anywhere close enough to support what she's doing with training, and it's not the right types of foods to get her where her goals want to be, to lose that body fat loss. She ended up losing about 80 pounds over the course of that next year, and then I noticed her progress slowing. After about a year, I'm going, so how's the nutrition going? She stuck to it pretty well for a year, and when she backed off of her nutrition, she kept training, kept expending the same number of calories, getting the same training, not having the same effect. Why? The other piece of the puzzle went out, right? So now we don't have the clear picture. It all goes out. So it's really got to be there. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this. It comes from CrossFit, from Glassman. It's world-class fitness, not nutrition, world-class fitness in 100 words or less. Eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar. Keep intake to levels that will support exercise but not body fat. And I know world-class fitness in 100 words or less is the first thing he says. Does he first talk about training? Does he first talk about what push-ups, sit-ups, CrossFit? Does he first talk about what you're going to do physically? The first words out of his mouth are concerning nutrition. Eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar. Keep intake to levels that will support exercise but not body fat. First words, probably a clue. Practice and train major lifts, deadlifts, clean, squat presses, clean and jerk, and snatch. Similarly, master the basics of gymnastics, pull-ups, dips, ropes, climbs, push-ups, sit-ups, presses to handstands, pirouettes, flips, splits, and holds, bike, run, swim, row, etc. hard and fast. So huge variety, right? Huge variety of things going on, not necessarily any one thing. CrossFit, by the way, is a general physical preparedness program. It's meant to be broad and inclusive, right? It's not specific. 5 or 6 days per week, mix these elements in as many combinations and patterns as creativity will allow. Routine is the enemy. Keep workouts short and intense. If you look at our ancestors, using their physical ability to survive, did they know what the routine was going to be? Okay, when I'm running from that leopard, I'm going to have to run 100 yards, and I'm going to have to climb up this wall, I'm going to do that thing. They didn't know what they were going to encounter. They didn't know what they were going to have to do to physically exert themselves. They might have to run 3 miles. They might have to sprint 50 yards and then fight something. So this kind of a general physical preparedness works into that kind of a theory. We may not know specifically what we have to engage in. Regularly learn and play new sports. I like that because it's not boring. You pick up a new sport, something you haven't done before. Why not pick up some highlight stuff and go do that? Whatever it is, but something to keep you moving, something to keep you out of your comfort zone. Why do we eat? Modern times, why do we eat? First is survival, right? We all have to eat. It's required for basic survival and for fuel. That's what allows us to do the things that we do throughout the day. That should be the #1 reason that we eat, right? Should be, but is it? Not necessarily, right? I'm an emotional eater. When I watch Lifetime movies, I break out the ice cream and all that crap. Right? But, it's modern times, it's not necessarily the reason that we eat. A lot of other reasons. Pleasure, tastes good, right? We taste good. And I always say this, dude, why are McDonald's fries, why are they so popular?
They're delicious.
They're freaking delicious. That's why. They taste great. They're salty. They got lots of fat in them. They're tasty. You want to eat those things. They're good. Cupcakes. Why do we eat those? Because our ancestors chased down cupcakes in the forest and swung them. Right? It just doesn't work that way. They taste good, so we eat for pleasure. Emotional. Food makes us feel better, usually temporarily, right? There's that guilt thing after you throw down the pint of ice cream or whatever it is. After you do it, you're like, why did I do that? Then you're embarrassed because you ate a pint of ice cream. But modern times, again, it's an emotional thing. Food makes us feel better. The term comfort food is permanently in our lexicon. Right? It's there. That's what it is. When I had surgery a month ago, beginning of January, I was getting ready for a fight, failed my pre-fight physical, learned I have to have a giant cyst taken out of my head, now I can't move for a month, and I'm sitting there, and I felt sorry for myself, and I ate everything that was too slow to get away from me. So, I gained weight. That's the way it goes, right? But now I'm fine, I'm back, I'm moving again, I'm not fine, but I'm moving again, right? I'll be able to train full speed in 3 weeks or so, and then I'll be back focused, and then I'm going. So for the next surgery, I plan on getting 50 pounds, but we'll have to see what that one is. Social, it brings people together, and social is big, right? You go to a wedding, you go to a bar mitzvah, you go to anything, you're going to be surrounded by people. You go to a funeral, what happens? Yeah, you have a family member die, especially in the South, I don't know about anywhere else, but they throw food at you. You can't get away from it. It's everywhere. So it's almost out of obligation too. Yes.
And it's not just the food though; it's the drinking.
Yeah,
it adds a lot to the social part.
Right, and a lot of people don't realize that. That it's soda. All the drinks that we have that contain these high number of calories. Alcohol, for God's sake, is there. We talk about the beer belly. Everybody knows what the beer belly looks like, right? It's a different kind of belly. The only thing that causes that, just like Terry's. The only thing that causes, oh my God, you picked up some money. The only thing that causes a beer belly is a lower protein, higher carbohydrate diet, simple carbs. It causes that shape in the belly because the intramuscular fat builds up. So when you see that, you know what the cause is. That's
Not
it.
enough bacon in the diet.
High simple carb diet. What's that?
I said not enough bacon in the diet.
Not enough bacon in the diet. That's actually the #1 cause of death in the United States. Not enough bacon in the diet. Diseases of modernity. The medical community, diseases of modernity. I think CrossFit refers to it as diseases of modern civilization. See, these are things which have causal links to the lifestyles we lead today. There's not a lot of hard science that says it's directly because of this, but certainly there are a lot of correlations and a lot of causal links that are to be examined. Things like obesity. When Columbus landed on the shores, my Native American ancestors are hanging out doing everything right, and now we have taxes and all that crap because he fixed that. But there wasn't a lot of obesity. And even early Europeans noticed this. Hey, Native Americans look different. They tend to have much lower rates of obesity. They tend to have pretty long lives, given the time, without modern medicine and everything in place. Why? They ate what we call a paleo diet. They were very low on grains. They were sometimes there, but they were essentially eating what our ancestors would have eaten in the Stone Age. Whatever they could kill, whatever they could hunt and gather, that's what they were eating. Right, so not a lot of opportunity to get obese because you also had to catch that food in general, didn't you? And when you look at tribal cultures, you don't have a lot of delineated responsibilities like we have today. This person might be a doctor, this person might be a hunter, this person might be a soldier. Everybody did everything. And whatever the task needed to be done was your responsibility and you had to do it. So while you're out catching your food or gathering your food, you're expending calories. Watched a great program on Mountain Men on the History Channel some time ago, and they're estimating with the amount of ground that these guys covered and the terrain that they covered, that they needed about 6,500 calories a day to maintain themselves. 6,500 calories a day. Now, where were they getting that high-calorie food out in the middle of nowhere?
Right.
Fat, lots of fat, right? That was their primary energy source. They're mountain men. You know, they're not carrying around sacks of grain and oatmeal to cook. You know, they're eating bear, they're eating any animal they can find, and they're eating every part of it they can find, including organ meats. All those things that doctors told us because of the fat cholesterol hypothesis, which we now know has failed. You can't eat these fats, you can't eat these, or you can't do these things. That's what they were eating. And they had to, just to support the basic functions, right? And McDonald's French fries. Diabetes, type 2. Now, type 1 diabetes is related to a number of different things. It can be related to autoimmune factors, it can be related to external factors like viruses. So there are not a lot of evidence that there's a direct causal link between diet and type 1. So they could be born with type 1, even if the parent didn't have diabetes. But type 2 diabetes is specifically, we know, specifically diet and nutrition related. No question, right? So that guy with the beer belly, he's probably more likely to get diabetes, right? He's got that high carbohydrate diet. And we're talking about the zone diet, which really focuses on insulin and glucagon control and hormone balance. Very briefly later on. I won't bore you with the details because I would fall asleep myself if we went into the technical aspects of it. Hypertension, high blood pressure. We eat a lot of things today, minerals that we didn't necessarily ingest in earlier times, especially sodium, very high. Carbohydrates cause you, when you eat starches and sugars, they're hygroscopic, they absorb water. So for example, for every gram of starch that you eat, you take on about 3 grams of water. So you've picked up 4 grams from that 1 gram of starch that you ate. Right now, that additional fluid that your body's retaining raises your blood pressure. So a lot of things in our modern diets relate to our blood pressure going up way past where it should be. Alzheimer's, this is interesting. There is kind of a move among Alzheimer's research to reclassify this as diabetes type 3. It's interesting, but they're finding a lot of the plaques that build up in the brain are related to high carbohydrate, high sugar diets. So it's just kind of emerging where they're looking into that, the nutritional aspects of what causes Alzheimer's and what leads to it. But Alzheimer's could have been underreported in the past. We know, we kind of grow up thinking sometimes people who get very old, they get senile, and just kind of, that's just what it is. So it's possible this was dramatically underreported and it's just not diagnosed. But it's prolific today, it's very common, and there are a lot of links between that going on in modern nutrition. Depression, and I don't know. There's not a lot of hard science behind this as of yet, but there are a lot of doctors, a lot of researchers who are linking depression to types of diets, the way that the diet affects your body chemistry. Friends of mine I worked with in the restaurant industry years ago had a little girl who had seizures. Couldn't do anything. They went to a number of different neurologists, all these different medicines. It was crazy. They went to see a doctor in Tampa who was advocating a ketone diet. Ketosis is the state in your body where you are using fat as your primary fuel source. So they wanted to switch her to that. So instead of carbohydrates, as is traditional in our culture, they wanted her to have nothing. She couldn't have a bite of a cracker. Nothing. When she got into a state of ketosis, seizure stopped. We say miracle, right? Oh, it's a miracle. It's simply a manipulation of body chemistry through nutrition. But it's brilliant. No medicine, no invasive drugs, no therapies per se, other than what she has to eat. And they know that she can grow out of this. She may be able to eat those carbohydrates in the future, but you're making a gamble there. When she picks up that cracker or eats that little bit of pasta, is she going to go into a seizure again? Now, I don't know what causes that, but I don't really care. If you tell me my kid's going to be healed, they're not going to have any more seizures because of this type of diet, we'll all eat that way. There won't be a cracker anywhere around my house, right? So it's a matter of priority, really. The zone diet. The zone can be a little bit intimidating when you first start looking at it because it can seem a little overly complex, right? But once you get used to it, it really it's not tough. And you can start to kind of spotting things after a while. When you first start zone, I really recommend that you measure your foods and get used to what 4 ounces of a lean beef looks like. Get used to what a cup of this looks like or half a cup of that looks like.
Hey, I'm just kind of listening.
The zone diet was designed to address diseases of modernity, or diseases of modern civilization. It's one of the things it was actually designed to do. Right? And we'll talk about specific ratios and why Dr. Sears believes it's kind of the cure-all. It's anti-inflammatory, he says. Right? And again, I always preface that with he says because there's not a whole lot of research to back this up other than anecdotal research. Yeah, I'm on the zone, and yes, I'm finding these differences in my body. So there's not enough conclusive evidence right now to nail down and say, okay, yeah, this is perfect for everybody. Hormonal balance. Really, the two we're looking at are insulin and glucagon, which are storage and releasing hormones, respectively. They either store or they release protein and glycogen in your body for fuel and for recovery. So it seeks to strike a balance between those two hormones. a specific combination of macronutrients. Anybody know what that combination is? Some of these owners in here? 40, 30, 30 between carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. What I find tough about Zone is meeting that 40% carbs because it's very little starch, no sugar. So I'm trying to meet 40% of my intake through spinach, broccoli, asparagus. Those things are nutrient dense, great. They are very low in calories, very low. So like when you look at a block of spinach, it's, my God, it's something like 20 cups, literally, you know, to meet that block. So you've really got to get these combinations of things going on. It is measurable, observable, and repeatable. Okay, you have, I know I need about 17 blocks, somewhere around there, if I'm going to drop weight, right, considering my workload in line training. So I can measure those blocks. I can be very specific about it, right? I can observe the effects that that number of blocks is having. I can reduce it or increase it as needed. And I can repeat it, right? If I needed 17 blocks and that was consistent for me, the next training cycle I'm on, and if I want to go back to this, I know I measured it, I observed it, now I can repeat it, and I can use it again. And measurable, observable, repeatable is something here in CrossFit all the time. I want to be able to measure those results, see them in, and get repetition of it. What to eat? I think this is from actually directly from WebMD, their summation of what the Zone diet says. A small amount of protein at every meal, approximately the size of your palm, one small chicken breast. On chicken breast, I order my meats from a company that has all range fed, no steroids, all that good stuff. I order in bulk, so it ends up being about the same as the other stuff, the hormone fed stuff that I would buy in the grocery store. I'm not saving money, I'm just ordering in bulk, so it works out to about the same. But one of my chicken breasts is the size of a chicken breast. When you go to Publix and you buy a chicken breast, if Arnold Schwarzenegger were a chicken, that would be the size of the breast. So people, wow, that's a little chicken breast. No, that's a normal chicken breast. It's not pumped up with water, steroids, and all that other jazz, right? But so, a normal chicken breast is about the size of a deck of cards. It's not much bigger than that. It's relatively small. And at every snack, one in the late afternoon, one in the late evening. Favorable carbohydrates, twice the size of the protein portion. So if you're looking at your plate, right, about 40% of your plate should be taken up mostly by those fruits, vegetables, things along those lines. He prefers vegetables over fruits, a little bit more complex carbohydrate. Most vegetables and lentils, beans, whole grains, and most fruits. Now, is this paleo?
No.
It's not. It's clearly not paleo. We'll talk about paleo in a second. My preference in general for myself is paleo rather than this because I find this to be a little bit of a pain in the ass. But if you've really got somebody that needs to drop weight and you can stick them to this, it's a great way to do it. A smaller amount of carbohydrates if you have chosen unfavorable ones. These include brown rice, pasta, papaya, mango, banana, dry breakfast cereal, breads, tortillas, nachos, whatever it is, right? Those things that are, you'll notice all these are generally high sugar, like mango, banana, or they're processed. Now can you just go pick rice and eat it? You can't digest that. It'll puff up like crazy and it'll pass through you, but you actually won't be able to digest it. Your digestive system isn't efficient enough to use the rice for nutrients without it being cooked. It must be cooked, right? Or you won't even digest it, it'll just pass right through. Blocks. Zone is built around the assignment of blocks. And if you go to zone.com, there are block calculators, all these things that you can use for your clients. 40% carbs, 30% protein, 30% fat. So you assign a specific number of blocks. Generally, the bigger you are in terms of muscle mass, lean muscle mass ratio, the more blocks you're going to have. Because it doesn't really calculate in fat, or it shouldn't. There are some calculators out there that do. But do you need to fuel fat? Of course not. You need to fuel the lean mass, right? So if we start doing calculations off of total body weight, we've made a mistake. So we need to figure out as closely as we can what body fat percentage is. If you're not getting an MRI, you're not getting an exact number on your body fat count. It's going to be off. But we can approximate it. And this, I like to say, is more art than science. I'm going to start tweaking what I'm eating to meet my needs and kind of get where we go. I might start with 17 blocks and I go, okay, I'm dead, I'm not losing the weight, I can't fuel this, I gotta have more, or I gotta have less to meet what my needs are. Paleo. Not so much design, right? The Zone diet was a package designed to sell. This is a diet, this is heart patients, anti-inflammatory, all of these things. That was a designed diet. Paleo is more like a return to the way that we used to eat before we had processing, before we could do all of these things. I like to say if you can eat it in its raw state and digest it, it's good to go on paleo. Nuts, fruits, vegetables, meats, all those things. Yeah, you can eat meat raw. I know it's not very fun, but you can eat it. asserts that diseases of modernity are largely linked to nutrition and can be mitigated or cured by eliminating modern processed foods. Sound familiar? Zone says the same thing, right? It's kind of processed foods of the devil. In particular, sugar. You know, when Glassman says no sugar, I saw Terry do cupcake last night.
Took a picture.
Took a picture. Go ahead.
We'll put it on the
Right,
Facebook page.
And again, you know, the first time I saw Terry, I walked into the gym in Ohio. And this person can tell me something about nutrition and fitness. You know right away. You look at Terry, you go, great. There's somebody who knows what she's doing. Does that mean she's perfect? No, it doesn't mean she's perfect with her nutrition, but she's probably better than most of us, right? You know, she's on the ball. She's on the money. So it's not that you have to have complete perfection. It's 2013. It's not caveman days. So the occasional cupcake's going to run in front of you and you're going to snatch it up. It's just kind of the way it goes. So we don't have to be perfect, but it's a good way to go. And paleo doesn't really lay out specific ratios. And if you think about the way our ancestors evolved, I'm not trying to start a political debate. I say evolved as in adapted inside of a specific set of circumstances, not appeared out of thin air. Not specific ratios. Would our ancestors have been able to pick up specific ratios? They wouldn't have. You know, they wouldn't be able to set that plan. Okay, I have this much spinach, I have this much of that. They ate whatever they could that was in front of them. And a lot of people argue for vegetarianism. Fine. For me, if you want to be a vegetarian because of moral choices, I support you entirely. If you want to be a vegetarian because you say that's the healthier way to eat, I have to say to you that our ancestors would not be here today in the condition that we're in if we were vegetarians. We are successful as we are as a species because we can eat damn near anything. You know, if we got to eat a cockroach, we can eat that. You know, if we got to eat a deer, we can eat that. We can eat an apple. We can eat those things. A wolf can't eat an apple. If a wolf can't find meat, it's going to starve to death. So we're prolific for that reason. We're all over the place because we're omnivores. We can eat anything. So there are no specific ratios in paleo. So what do we eat in paleo? If you can hunt it, kill it, or gather it, growing naturally, and eat it without processing, it's fair game. Pretty much that, right? And we think, and there's this big whole grain push, and there's a great documentary, and I can go on about this forever, but I won't. But a great documentary called Fathead, which covers, it's on Netflix and it's on, I think, Xfinity On Demand, but the name of the documentary is Fathead. Everybody knows Morgan Spurlock. He did the 30 Days of McDonald's thing, right? I'm watching that documentary and I'm going, this smacks of BS to me. You know, he's eating 3 times a day. He's only eating 3 times a day, no snacks or anything else, and he gains this tremendous amount of weight. Right? And he says, oh, this will happen to you if you eat at McDonald's 3 times a day. Fathead kind of takes an opposing view for the purpose of playing devil's advocate. The guy eats at McDonald's for 30 days, 3 times a day, and loses weight. But his choices at McDonald's are different than Spurlock's choices was. Spurlock's going, yeah, supersize me. He's eating the worst things he can find 3 times a day. You know, he's not, even within the McDonald's framework, he's not making rational choices. He's, give me the biggest thing you got, we'll roll with it. This other guy approaches it a little bit differently. I'm not saying I would do what the other guy did either. I'm not saying I would follow the Fathead plan, but he actually lost weight eating at McDonald's for 30 days. When you look at how the modern food pyramid that the USDA recommends got into place, it gives you a little bit of insight into our political system. And I say political because it is entirely political. It's not new. We're not just figuring out that's not a good idea. In the 50s and 60s, doctors were going, yeah, that's a bad idea. The doctor that proposed that, I can't remember his name, latched onto a senator who said, yeah, I love this is great. This doctor said, look, the consumption of fats causes high cholesterol, and that causes heart attacks. And we operated off of that basis for years. We know now that's just not the case. It's very much flipped, yes?
Well, it was also off a study he did that was later debunked too.
It was debunked at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they knew very clearly at the time this was bad science. But politics pushed it through. Why does it matter to gym owners? And here's kind of the thing. We focus on fitness as a marketing point. You know, and I see a lot of our advertising, lose fat. Boom, first thing, good idea, right? People want to lose fat. Most people, when asked, would rather lose fat than learn how to throw a punch. If you interview the average person out here, you know, would you want to learn self-defense or do you want to lose 20 pounds? Well, I want to lose 20 pounds. Right? We know learning self-defense would be better for them in general, but they want to lose 20 pounds. Body modification is more easily achieved through nutrition than exercise alone. When I get Russ ready for a fight, you know, what do you weigh right now?
Like 176.
176. He's got to weigh 155. Fight day. Okay? He must weigh 155. It's not a choice, right? He's got to weigh that. One of the things I'm big on at our gym, they're amateurs right now, but they're going pros, so we behave like pros. We don't miss weight. We show up on time. We don't start fights on the scales. When you go to amateur events, guys, the #1 problem is fighters missing weight because they don't know how to make their weight be in nutrition. They're trying to do it by sweating it out, by exercise, by everything else. And we generally sweat out about 4 or 5 pounds. That's it. I don't want any more hydration coming out than that. but we start to modify his body with nutrition. We don't change his training. His training stays the same. We use nutrition to modify his body. So he gets down to that 155. The next day when he steps in the ring, he weighs 170, 175. And we start eating. We weigh in, we leave there, we go to the table, let's eat. So we start putting it back on. That's all accomplished through nutrition. I have fighters call all the time from other gyms and they go, hey, I can't drop this weight. I'm only eating 400 calories a day and I can't drop it. It's because you're eating 400 calories a day. That's why you can't drop it. You know, your body's catabolizing itself. It's robbing your own body of muscle mass. And you can't start a week in advance. I'm sorry. That's not the way it works. You know, we've got to go a month out. And my way of cutting weight for fighters takes a lot more discipline because it takes a month instead of a week, right? But I don't want my guys sweating out 20 pounds. So we can more easily accomplish it through nutrition. It fuels the performance of athletes. The story I just told about Dom, we were winning that fight. That was ours. You know, we lost it in the second round because he just couldn't do anything else. That was it. So now Dom sleeps at my house the night before a fight for the weigh-in. He eats exactly what I've put in front of him and nothing else. The day of the fight, I hold his hand and he eats exactly what I put in front of him and nothing else. And he hasn't gassed out since.
True story.
Right? True story. Whether he likes it or not.
What you call him, Cupcake?
We do call
Yes.
it. Actually, that's Dom's fighter walkout tea, is the cupcake. His first fight, it was awesome. And it came with a name in the gym one day because he's pretty and all that. You know, he used to be a model. And I told him it won't last. Don't worry, keep fighting. You'll have these scars and shit. You'll look horrible in like 5 years. Don't worry. But he's walking out, right? And we announce him, tell him the cupcake's stouter. I hear guys behind me. I'm sitting in the corner. They go, oh, cupcake. What? You know, they're throwing out epithets and all this. The announcer's right beside me. I always get seated by the announcer, which pisses me off because they say shit. And I'm like, but the announcer's like, oh, Cupcake. How did he get that name? Then they get in the ring and Dom starts beating the crap out of the guy and chokes him like a chicken. They're like, hey, that guy's not a cupcake at all. I'm like, that's why it's funny. If he was actually a cupcake, it wouldn't be funny. But he stopped, not because his skill failed him, not because his will failed him. He just didn't have any gas in the tank. Car runs out of gas, you stop. He ran out of gas, he stopped. Sucked to watch. It was horrible. It helps us sell our gym and our program to clients. Lose fat, how do I do that? Do you think if your clients came in and did all of your fitness programs and ate whatever they wanted, they would lose weight? Maybe they'd lose some, right? Because they're increasing their physical activity. If they don't increase their nutrition intake, their caloric intake, they might get some of that body modification they were looking for. They might drop some weight. But it's not going to be anywhere near what they need, what they want to reach their goals, most likely. And if you've never had your nutrition firing on all cylinders at the same time your training is firing on all cylinders, then you don't know how powerful it is. Because once you get your nutrition lined up to your training, the changes in your body are almost immediate. Within days, you'll start to feel different, and you'll start to see changes very, very quickly when you match your nutrition up to your training. But it is a huge, huge, huge piece of the puzzle. I did a great seminar with Les Grossman, who is a Olympic exercise physiologist. He worked with Olympic teams all over the country and all over the world, in fact. We worked with the Japanese and Chinese teams. The first day, we spent 4 hours talking about nutrition, how to program it, how to prescribe it. We didn't say a word about exercise. Literally a half a day he spent going over all of these different ways to work this, from body composition to determine what the athletes need, when they need it, how they need it, all that good stuff, right? So, huge piece of the puzzle. And we saw from Glassman, first thing he says, world-class fitness, 100 words or less, first thing he says, eat this. That's where you start. Okay, that's where it has to be. So, anybody have a welcome packet or anything like that?
We do.
Yeah. When I do intros, I talk about it. I talk about nutrition. I really should put that into a welcome packet, but it's a good idea. What are your fitness goals? Okay, and we talk kind of generally about nutrition. But if you had a form, what are your fitness goals? Maybe an outline of zone, an outline of paleo. Here are a couple of options, you know, to put it in your welcome packet and to talk to people about when they came in. It's probably a pretty good selling point. You know, let them know, hey, this is another piece of the puzzle. You're going to want in place to do it. And if you have those success stories in your gym, somebody that dropped 50, 80, 100 pounds, if they'll let you throw them out there as an example, you know, Our Lady does, by all means do it. You know, it's something good to do. They can advocate for that nutrition as well. Aww. Aww. All right, guys, that was really